Hi guys, Kathleen here, the Pearled Nest. Thanks so much for coming by. If you're a new viewer, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Hopefully you find something here you really like. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. I'm really glad you're here. If you are looking for me online, you will find me mostly on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram as the Pearled Nest. I'm not on Facebook at all, so don't even bother looking for me there. And I'm also on Ravelry, sort of active there, not really, but I'm Special K Hala on Ravelry. I actually have show notes today. So today we're going to do something a little bit different, but first we're going to go through all the usual admin-y stuff, and I'll show you my finished objects, I'll show you my whips, I'll show you my acquisitions, and then we're going to get into another topic about knitting as self-care. And then towards the end, I'll get all chatty. And if you're only here for the knitting, then you can just like skip that part of it. So if you are enjoying my videos, do me a favor, please do subscribe. And then also click the little bell that will tell you when I'm uploading videos. So you can personalize it to set it whether you want to see every video that I upload, or I don't even know how that personalization works, but supposedly somehow you're able to sort them. There's the dog. Come here, Sammy. Hi, buddy. It's going to mess with the camera. Okay. So, this is actually episode number 12, which is pretty cool. I've got a dozen episodes now. And like I said, I will get a little chatty towards the end. So if you're only here for the knitting, just watch the first part. Let's start with finished objects. I do have a pair of socks that I finished for my hubby. These socks are knit in Polka Dot Sheep Yarns Tenderfoot base, and this is Melisandre for the main body and Winter Raven for the heels, toes, and then just the very top of the cuff. And I actually put this little stripe at the top of the cuff because David and I now both have the same socks. He really liked those colors and he asked me to make the same socks for him. This is the Petty Harbor pattern. This is knit on size 1 needles. And so he really liked those socks that I made for myself, so I made him a pair. And in order to be able to tell them apart when I'm washing them, on his I put this little gray stripe at the top. So yeah, so that way I could tell them apart. I love this yarn. It's a really soft, nice yarn to knit with, washes up really nicely, and feels really nice on the foot. So if you're interested in Polka Dot Sheep yarn, I will put a link down below for her website, and some local yarn shops also sell her yarn. So you'll see a little bit more of Polka Dot Sheep in a sec. That is literally the only FO I have, because now we're getting into whips. The reason it's the only FO is because I am stuck on Sleeve Island. Yes. I knit my sleeves using the 2 at a time method. Pretty much any tube I'm making, hat, mittens, gloves. Oh, I've never actually knit gloves. They kind of scare me a little bit. Socks, sleeves, anything that I'm doing as a tube that I need multiples of, I will knit 2 at a time. So here are and I use the magic loop method. So here are my sleeves. This is actually, oh, I probably just totally messed with my microphone. This is actually yarn that I dyed up myself. It is non-superwash merino wool. I think this one is DK weight, if I'm not mistaken. I dyed it using cochineal. And so this is the Anchor Sweater My Size by Petite Knits. I'll show you. So there's the sweater, and there's the sleeves. So in order to knit sleeves 2 at a time, you kind of have to twist the sweater a little bit so that you can you're picking up from the underarm on each side of the sweater. So you have to kind of twist the sweater a little bit to do that. There's lots of great videos on YouTube about how to knit 2 at a time sleeves. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'll just tell you that I am knitting these 2 at a time. I have to do 19 repeats of the decrease, so I've got 13 done. I'm hoping to have this done this weekend. We shall see if I have time to get it done. I still have to go to the grocery store. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Lots of things to do today, but I do hope to get a little knitting time in so I can get these sleeves done. So pretty good. Getting pretty close. So I've been working on that, and let's see. My other whips are my sprocket socks. So I've cast on, because I finished David's socks, I always have a pair of socks on the go. I have cast on for sprocket socks, and the pattern is on Ravelry by Megan Nodecker. These are ChowGoo size 1 needles. That is my preferred method, is with size 1 needles and magic loop again. I do have the interchangeable set of ChowGoos. I really like it. I have both sets actually. I have the smaller size set and the larger needles set. But these are on size 1. So this is also using polka dot sheep yarn. It's almost all polka dot sheep yarn in these socks. This is a navy color. I don't remember the name of the color. When you do 2 at a time knitting, you do have to break your skein into 2 balls. So this is coming from 2 balls that are in my bag. And the next color, so the sprocket socks are striped. The next color I'm going to be doing is this one, which is also a polka dot sheep. It's like a grayish color, and I don't know if you can see the speckles in there. Maybe a little bit. Come on, focus. Doesn't want to focus. Anyway, there are speckles in here. So that's the next color. So it's going to go navy into grayish, and this kind of doubles as acquisitions. And let me tell you, I just spent a lot of money in sock yarn, but I can literally now make 5 pairs of socks. The next color is going to be this green color. This is also polka dot sheep. All of this is polka dot sheep yarn except for one, and I'll tell you which one that is when I get to it. It's the Tenderfoot base, and the green and the grayish and the next color all have, what is that stuff called? Stellina in them. So it's, maybe you can see a little bit in that one actually. You can see a little bit of the sparkle in there. So these socks will have a little sparkle to them. I've wound these all into 2 balls each. And then the color after that, I know this one's a Winter Raven because I've used this in David's. Oh, actually, this isn't Winter Raven. What is this one called? I forget the name of this. This actually has, the reason I chose this one is because it has some blue and some green in it, and a little bit of white, and like just hits of it. You can't really, I don't think, can you see the, yeah, you can kind of see the blue in there a little bit. So I chose this one because actually it'll kind of tie all the colors together. So that'll be the 4th color. And then the 5th color, this is actually Potion yarns. And I'll put the links to these yarns down below in the down bar. This is Potion yarns, and this will be the final color. And then it repeats. These 5 rows will repeat. So that's like what I had to buy full skeins and then divide them into 2 smaller balls. And because, you know, the sprocket socks typically uses 20 gram, they're all 20 gram minis, and I had to buy full skeins, full 100 gram skeins. I'll be able to make actually either several pair of sprocket socks, or I don't know, I mean, I can make 4 other pairs of socks with all the yarn I got. Let's see. The other thing I was going to show you, actually, I decided not to because I'll show you the pattern. This is the Rooftop Landing Hat by, where did I put the pattern? Here it is. The Rooftop Landing Hat by Amy Alexander, who owns Polka Dot Sheep Yarns. I keep wanting to call this Reindeer Launch, and when I show you the picture, maybe you'll understand why. In my head, this is Reindeer Launch. No, it's called Rooftop Landing. Don't those reindeer look like they're launching, not landing? Anyway, that's the Rooftop Landing pattern by Amy Alexander, and I realized when I was about to show this to you that I bought the wrong yarn. This is supposed to be on sport weight yarn, and I went to the sport weight section of my yarn shop, thought I was buying sport weight yarn. Literally, as I was about to show it to you, because this is like take 27 of this, I realized that it is fingering weight yarn. No, not sport weight yarn. So I have to go back to the yarn shop and buy some more yarn. I'm sure I'll find a use for this yarn. In fact, I think it might even be, it's Amble by the Fiber Company. And I think it may be a wool and nylon blend. Wait for it, wait for it. It is merino wool. Oh, it's merino wool, alpaca, and recycled nylon. Super cool. I'll find some use for this. It's fingering weight. And I have a ball in this white color. Oops. And a ball in this dark gray, like a charcoal-y. It looks black on there. It is charcoal. Let me tell you, knitting with black is not my favorite thing. I would not choose that voluntarily. So I have to go to the yarn store. Darn, I gotta exchange that. Okay, so the next thing is, oh, my crochet squares. That's my next whip. I have not had as much time to knit at lunchtime as I usually do. You know, life, whatever, work has just required me to, I've either had errands and stuff I'm doing at lunchtime or something, and just haven't had as much time to sit and knit or crochet on my lunch break. But literally I have 2 of these since the last episode. So it's been a month since the last episode. I have 2 of these. That's how lame I am. These are filled granny squares is what they're called. And it's literally just like double crochets all the way around. I can't even tell you how big these are. I just make sure I do the same number of rows for every single one. They're all identical. I probably have about, I don't know, 100 of them now. And this is, well, jump into acquisitions because, so I had the polka dot sheep. Wow, I'm rambling a little bit, aren't I? Polka dot sheep yarn, and the potion yarns. I just bought all that yarn for the sprocket socks. I bought the amel yarn for the hat that is, and it's going to be aborted now and started over again. So that's an acquisition. And these are basically a continuous acquisition because I belong to, wait for the crinkle, because here it comes. I belong to Row 1 Yarns. I can't remember if this was September or October. Here are the, so this is September and October. I can't remember which month is which. Wow, these actually kind of complement each other really well, these 2 months. So Row 1 Yarns is, I'm not sponsored by Laura at Row 1 Yarns, but I love her products. So if you're not familiar with Row 1 Yarn, what her mission is, or was when she started the company, was much like me. She goes into her local yarn shop. She sees all these beautiful yarns there. Great, those are the ones you can buy locally. And then you go on Instagram, and you can literally see like hundreds of indie yarn dyers and all these other companies that, you know, maybe your yarn shop can literally only carry so much, right? But there's a lot of yarn out there. There's a lot to discover. So what she does is she exposes you to other yarn dyers, mostly indie yarn dyers, that she gives you samples of. So every month is basically a sampler, and it is going to be 12 little balls. They're 10-gram balls each, so you get 100 grams total of fingering weight yarn. And they'll all be from the same yarn dyer, same base. So you can use them all for, you know, projects and things, and they're all going to be the same base. They're all going to be fingering weight, sock weight, you know, yarn. Most of the time it's merino wool and nylon. And they're these little 10-gram balls, and they're already wound into little cakes for you. So they're ready to use, like literal little center pull cakes. You could just start using them right away. I personally like to wind them into little balls because of the way I knit. I'm a continental knitter, so it's better for me to pull from the outside than to pull from the inside. If I pull from the inside as a continental knitter, then my yarn just keeps twisting, 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 and I end up having to, have you ever done this? If you're a continental knitter, you should be pulling from the outside of the ball, not the inside of the ball. And if you're pulling from the inside of the ball, probably at some point you have to like let this go and let it like unspin because it's gotten too tightly spun around. That's because you're pulling from the center, and it's twist. It just can, every time you turn that work, it twists that yarn. When you are a continental knitter and you pull from the outside, no matter how you twist your work, you will not twist the yarn. So you will never have to untwist your project or the yarn ball if you pull from the outside. Now, if you're an English knitter, pull from the middle all you want. But for us continental knitters, we need to pull from the outside. So yes, so that was my other acquisition, is my Row 1 Yarns. Actually, that's probably October and November now that I think of it. Yeah, that's got to be October and November because December is going to be shipping here real soon too. So, yeah, so those are my acquisitions. And I don't think I had any more acquisitions. Nope. So we'll get on to the main topic. So now you're at the main topic. So I'm reshooting this segment because I feel like really it needs to be more like a heart-to-heart. Let's talk a little bit about why this topic even came up. So, and I'm going to grab a cup of coffee. And this is how I feel some days. Anyway, I feel like this topic of self-care is really important because there is just so much that goes on in our world on a day-to-day basis. And I don't mean the big crap. Like, I mean just like the little day-to-day stuff that everybody really is exposed to and has to deal with. The little things like toddlers teething or teenagers slamming doors or your coworker not picking up the slack or, you know, just the car that cut you off or I don't know. There's like a million little stresses that we have every single day. And I'm an HSP. Now, I'm not your typical HSP. I have an extroverted introvert personality. Like, I can do these videos and it doesn't faze me in the slightest. I am perfectly comfortable public speaking. I feel very natural and comfortable if I'm on a stage or holding a microphone or whatever. Like, that doesn't faze me. It's almost like I put on another personality when I do that. I don't feel like human beings are just like one set thing. You know, you are an introvert all the time in every situation. You are an extrovert all the time in every situation. You are a peace person, or you are a bold person, or creative, or loud, or quiet, or really, really relaxed, or really hyperactive. Like, we're not one thing. We're a lot of things. And I think that because of that, me calling myself an HSP really is because I get sensory overload. Quite frankly, that's really the source of all this for me. I pretty quickly get sensory overload. A TV being too loud. A TV show that's too loud. A lot of kids, small kids around me, playing loudly like kids do. Loud music, concerts, large crowds, noisy office building, noisy office space. Like, not so much smells. Smells don't really create any kind of sensory overload. It seems like it's mostly sound for me, and visual chaos as well. So visual and sound really for me are the two big things. And it happens pretty quickly. I get overloaded pretty quickly. Like, on a typical day, if I'm home, I don't have any TV on, I have no music on. It's rare for any of that to happen. When I'm in my office, I do not listen to music. When I'm working, I can't focus as well. I have to be in a high energy place in order for music to really be something that I can bop along with and work. Or it has to be a soothing kind of music, a low energy place, very chill, relaxed, groovy kind of thing that I can work really well with. But for the most part, I prefer no noise. And I don't know where it comes from. My brain just gets overloaded very easily if there's a lot of chaos, visual, physical, or noise. And everybody's idea of chaos is probably different. Mine just happens to be pretty low threshold, and the reaction is literally fight or flight. I'll get easily irritated, and I can tell when it's coming, and I'll get easily irritated. Probably people who don't know me very well or don't understand it, really. There are a lot of people who know me well, but don't understand this. But there's something in my brain that gets really easily overloaded. Like, I'm famous for doing an Irish goodbye. I'll be at a party, I will just leave. For a lot of reasons, but the big reason being, first of all, I don't like long goodbyes. If you ever gone to a big party and you have to like say goodbye to everybody, and you want to say goodbye to everybody, but that ends up being like this hour-long process. And it's usually happening when I'm like, I need to leave. I can't stay any longer. So Irish goodbyes work for me. I just like pick up my purse, head out. Hey, I'm going to the ladies' room, whatever, and don't come back. And that's because I've hit that fight or flight threshold, and I need quiet. And if I'm traveling for business or pleasure or whatever, that's usually when I seek out my hotel room and look for quiet. Just no TV, no nothing. I will literally, and here's where knitting comes in. I will literally, unless I'm super tired, I will literally pick up my knitting, and that's where the self-care starts. So that's my background on where I come at it from. And everybody's going to have a different place that they come at knitting as self-care or crochet or any kind of artistic, or whether it's fiber arts or not. Some people draw, some people journal. I've tried journaling. I do it every now and then, but not as often as I would like to. But my knitting is literally where the mental recovery starts. And it's for a lot of reasons. So if you find yourself in a situation where you feel like, I gotta get out of here, comment below. Because I would love to hear from other HSPs. I would love to hear from people maybe that identify with this, where you can function perfectly fine day to day. I can be as loud as anybody else, and I talk loud. I try to modulate as often as possible, but I realize that I talk loud. And for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to bother me, but maybe because it's in my head. And so if you identify with, kind of feeling like I don't feel totally like an 100% introvert, but there are times when I really need my peace and quiet. And there are times when I feel overwhelmed by what's happening around me, which I think happens to everybody, but to some people more than others. I would love to hear comments below. If you feel free to email me, I'm thepurlednest@gmail.com. Let's chat. Let's talk about what recovery methods you use. For me, it's escape. Find a quiet place, typically by myself, and no sounds, no noise. That's the nice thing about hotels, actually. Typically, unless you have big parties happening in the rooms around you, and I always ask for the quiet part of the hotel. Hotels, just because of the way they're designed, they're meant to be more soundproof from the noise on the street outside and the noise of the other rooms and the hallways and things like that. So they tend to be a good place to retreat to. And the first thing I do is I pick up my knitting. So if you enjoy knitting or crochet or any kind of crafting or art that is portable, you can take anywhere with you and uses your hands specifically, I think there's some kind of brain-hand connection that happens. I'm not sure what it is. But and I would love actually to research that a little more, because I did a little research into what knitting does for self-care. And I could literally recite a list off to you. And when I recorded this the first time, I recited a list and I was like, well, that's dumb. I'm just reciting what somebody else wrote. Let's talk about real life. And yeah, we know the research that says it helps with focus and centering and relaxation and de-stressing and reducing anxiety. It actually helps to relieve the sense of isolation. There's something about that hand-brain activity that can calm a brain, whether it's anxiety, stress, OCD, whatever it is. And well, let's talk about OCD real quick as a little sidebar, because knitting is like legit, like the OCD cure. Not cure, that's maybe not the right word. It's like the perfect activity if you have OCD, because you can sit there and count every dang stitch and nobody will question you. If you ever watched that TV show Monk, like it used to be on the USA Network years ago, and his character has OCD and he counts things a lot. Like he'll walk along the street and count and touch and count all of the, like the, what do they call them? Parking meters or rungs on a railing, things like that. So if you have OCD, knitting is pretty perfect, because pretty much that's what you're doing, is counting your stitches and your rows to make sure you're staying on track of a pattern. So, you know, it's a great way to maybe self-soothe. That's probably the right word. Is it self-soothes if you have OCD? But when it comes to the sensory overload that I feel, for me, that action of the deep meditation it creates, some people do yoga, some people pray, some people find comfort in putting on some headphones and listening to an app like Headspace or Calm or something like that to meditate and unwind and relax, or in some cases motivate and get you going. For me, knitting is my meditation. It's literally what helps my brain recover from stress, from chaos, from the electrical storm that's happening in my brain when these things take over. Because I'm sure that's what it is. It's probably electrical, some kind of electrical malfunction in there. Probably not so much chemical, probably more electrical. It's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's the input. It's what's going into my brain. It's what my brain is receiving, and it overwhelms it pretty quickly. So I gotta think it has something to do with the electrical system in my brain. I don't know. Maybe I'm a candidate for electroshock therapy. God, I hope not. Anyway, so when it comes to knitting, for me specifically, and I think for a lot of people, and maybe many people are actually using it this way and don't even realize why they're doing what they're doing, and why there are times when they feel drawn to their projects, their needles and their wool. There's something tactile about it. The wool going through your fingers, or acrylic, or whatever the fiber is you're knitting with. Typically it's not something irritating, because if it's irritating to knit with, in your hands, irritating to your fingers, most likely you're not going to want to knit with it too frequently. When we find things that are very comfortable in our hands, we even use those words. It's like, it's comfortable in my hand. I feel like there's some sense, something that's happening there with the feel of the needles in your hands. They're firm, and if they're warm, they're wood. If they're metal, they may be cooler. If they're plastic, maybe it doesn't feel like anything in your hands. but there's that firm sense of something in your hands. Then there's the wool. In my case, I'm a continental knitter, so the wool is going through my left hand and across, let's see, I'm gonna spill my coffee. Mine goes across like this. So it comes down off of here and goes across my fingers and through my hands. And then there's the counting action that happens, the rhythmic, repetitive motion of creating the stitches, whether they're knits or purls. The distraction at times of a more detailed pattern. Maybe you're changing colors, maybe you're doing cables, maybe you're doing yarn overs or some kind of lace work. Or there's the repetition of garter stitch or stockingette, where you're doing all knits and all purls or all knits, that rhythmic motion. And when you've been knitting for a while, you tend to develop a real rhythm to your knitting. I feel like there's something in that action and something in that activity that, for me, my brain responds to, and I think for a lot of people, their brains respond to. Yeah, sip of coffee. By the way, it's almost 11 o'clock in the morning on Thanksgiving. American Thanksgiving. There's just something in the process of knitting for me, more so than crochet. I don't know why. It's more in knitting that I find a zen, a place of peace and relaxation and centering and de-stressing. And a lot of people, research has shown, a lot of people get this same reaction when they do something like this. For some people, it's painting, you know, like fine art or abstract art or modern art, whatever. For some people, it's drawing. For some people, it's coloring. That's why adult coloring books are so popular. But for me, and I think for a lot of knitters out there, whether they realize it or not, it's probably a form of self-care. And I think it's important that we all recognize that we need some kind of self-care in our lives. And we take the time to provide that for ourselves. So I guess the short story is, if you ever see me out there knitting, there's probably a reason why I'm doing it. It's either because I have to finish a project and I've got a deadline, or it's because, and especially if you see me sitting in my car at lunchtime on a work day in a park, specifically, usually where I'm sitting, there's a reason I'm there. It's because I'm away from people. I'm sitting quietly. I have no distractions. I've eaten and my tummy's full. And the needles are helping me recenter, refocus, calm my mind, and relax, and be ready to go back to the office again and deal with the shit there. I have a great job, actually, but, you know, work's work. There's a reason they call it work and not play. So anyway, I just thought I would provide a little context to the topic that I wanted to talk about today. And this can even be an ongoing conversation we have. What do you do specifically? What are you doing to take care of yourself? Comment below. How specifically are the fiber arts? And I think I really mean specifically knitting and crochet. How are they helping you in your self-care? And do you recognize that it's self-care? Are you consciously using it as self-care? Does everyone around you understand that's what you're doing? Do you understand that's what you're doing? I think this is a really good ongoing conversation, and hopefully this has triggered some thoughts in your head, maybe some realizations. But more than anything, and maybe I've said that more than a few times, but more than anything, I want to acknowledge, yes, it's okay. Pick up those needles when you feel stressed. Take some deep breaths. And I mean like 10 deep breaths. Let's do it right now. So sit comfortably. Put your feet on the floor. Relax your arms. Relax your body. Relax your face and your shoulders and your torso and your legs and your arms. Now close your eyes, and we're going to do 10 slow, deep breaths. You can even have your knitting sitting in your lap if that helps. Now close your eyes. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now open your eyes. You probably felt a deep relaxation just by doing that activity. That's self-care. That's just what I want you to do. Just take the time to do that for yourself. Whether it involves knitting, deep breathing, praying, journaling, whatever it takes. Take that time for yourself. Off the soapbox now. All right, so if you were just here for knitting, that's all the knitting content. Bye-bye. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to. Next, we're going to talk about what else has been going on. So I'm going to be popping some other videos in here. So recently I cleaned the chicken coop. You'll see some video from that. That was tough, and I didn't enjoy it. I don't like it when I have to do it by myself because it's a lot of damned hard work. I have a very large chicken coop, and it's a lot of work getting it clean, but it's so satisfying when it's done. So I'll pop some video in here. I think I put this video on Instagram, so you might have seen it before, but I'll pop some video in here of me cleaning the chicken coop and what that process is like. And ongoing with the kombucha, still brewing the kombucha, I have discovered that I really love there's a combo of passion fruit and guava. So the grocery store has passion fruit and guava puree. So I don't have to get into all of that, like having to use the hand blender and puree all the fruit and everything. I literally just buy this in the freezer section, and it's so delicious. So the kombucha is still ongoing. And what else have I been doing? I think that's about it. We're approaching Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving will be here this week, coming week. And then Christmas will be here before you know it. Hopefully I'll have another video done before Christmas, fingers crossed. And I think that is it for today. So thanks so much for watching, for joining me here at the Pearl Nest. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.